Nothing that's expensive is ever inevitable.
Why couldn't he do it? Why can't he be the guy that does this?
If you have the power of geoengineering to terraform Mars, then you have the power of geoengineering to fix Earth and turn Earth back into Earth.
Elon Musk just got exposed in brutal fashion by Neil deGrasse Tyson on Piers Morgan's show. And the fallout is explosive. Tyson shredded Musk's obsession with cold logic and savage reality checks. What was supposed to be Musk's big defense of humanity's future turned into a televised takedown that left the world questioning his entire vision.
And if it's not a business case, the history of that kind of exercise tells us that it's not a sustainable activity.
Elon Musk versus Neil deGrasse Tyson. Two of the biggest names in science and technology colliding head-on. On one side, you've got Musk, the richest man in modern history, a guy who genuinely believes Mars is humanity's only backup plan. On the other side, Tyson, the most famous astrophysicist alive. The stage for this showdown was none other than Piers Morgan's show.
Strong views on that. My read of the history of space exploration is such that we do big, expensive things only when it's geopolitically expedient, such as we feel threatened by an enemy. And so for him to just say, let's go to Mars because it's the next thing to do, what does that venture capitalist meeting look like? So Elon, what do you want to do? I want to go to Mars. How much will it cost? $1 trillion. Is it safe? No, people will probably die. What's the return on the investment? Nothing.
This wasn't just a polite conversation about space. No, this was a full-on clash between dreamer and skeptic, between vision and practicality. For Musk, colonizing Mars isn't a wild fantasy, it's survival. He's been saying for years that one asteroid, one super virus, or even one environmental collapse could wipe out humanity. His answer? Build a second home for humans on Mars. A place to preserve what he calls the light of consciousness.
I'm not saying he can't do it. If he does it, it's not a business project. It's a vanity project. Vanity, I don't mean that in a...
But Tyson didn't buy it. Not for a second. He cut right through the hype with cold, unflinching logic. His words hit harder than any rocket launch. Sending people to Mars, he said, would cost trillions of dollars, kill a lot of people along the way, and return absolutely nothing in profit. It wouldn't just be risky. It would be financial suicide.
I've read extensively about the history of big, expensive projects in our species, going from the pyramids to the Great Wall of China to the Manhattan Project. And you go down that list, and the greatest of them, the biggest of them, the most expensive of them, related to the survival of who participated in it. They felt, we went to the moon, we felt threatened by the Russians, the godless commies, around the world. And so these are the motivations that enable people to write checks.
And here's the kicker. Tyson reminded everyone that humanity doesn't just do big, expensive things because they sound exciting. We only take those leaps when survival is at stake, usually against an enemy. His examples were sharp. The Manhattan Project cost billions, but it happened because the US feared Nazi Germany. The moon landing, that wasn't about exploration. It was about beating the Soviets in the Cold War. Tyson's point was simple but devastating. Unless a rival nation is threatening us from space, no government or corporation is writing the checks for Mars.
Problem. But if you're going to do something that no one has ever done before and it costs $1 trillion, if you can pull it off, go for it. My read of history says...
Then came Tyson's savage mockery of Musk's sales pitch. He said if Elon tried to pitch Mars at a venture capitalist meeting, it would last 30 seconds. Musk: I want to go to Mars. It'll cost $1 trillion. People will probably die. The return on investment? 0. Tyson's punchline? That's a 5-minute meeting, and it's over. The audience laughed, but the sting was real. He was exposing what many don't want to admit. Musk's dream has no economic foundation.
About the universe or yourself that we don't know.
The most astounding fact.
For Musk, that kind of attack cuts deep. Because to him, Mars isn't about money, and it never has been. So when he fired back, he didn't hold back either. That one post lit up social media. Musk was furious, but also dead serious. To Musk, Mars isn't an option. It's insurance. Insurance against extinction. Against Earth collapsing under its own weight. Against the sun one day turning into a red giant and cooking our oceans.
Extending a timeline that they thought was a natural inevitable.
And here's where the divide between these two men gets even more shocking. Tyson, the scientist, says, "Nothing that expensive is inevitable." His words aren't just about space, they're about human behavior. History shows people don't spend trillions for a dream. They spend it when they're terrified, when survival forces their hand. And in his eyes, Musk's plan has none of that urgency.
If you have the power of geoengineering to terraform Mars, then you have the power of geoengineering to fix Earth and turn Earth back into Earth.
Now here's where Tyson really dropped the mic. He delivered a line so simple, so devastating, that it left people questioning Musk's entire Mars dream. Tyson looked straight into the camera and said, "If we can terraform Mars, we can fix Earth."
It's been the object of people's fascination for hundreds of years. So I don't have a problem with any of that. I'm just describing the practicality of it. And if you have the technology and the power to terraform Mars and ship people there, you probably have the ability to bat asteroids out of the way that might have been headed towards Earth.
Think about the weight of that. Musk is talking about blasting humans across 140 million miles of empty space, building domes on a freezing planet with barely any atmosphere, and somehow creating farms, homes, and hospitals. Tyson cuts through all of it with one punch. If you've got the technology to make a dead rock like Mars livable, you've already got the technology to repair the only livable planet we've ever known. Why would you abandon Earth when the same tools could save it?
So just realistically, shipping 1 billion people to Mars or however many, by the way, I have nothing against that. I just don't see it.
And Tyson didn't stop there. He broke down the cold math. Moving billions of people to Mars. Forget it. The logistics are insane. Do you know how much payload it would take just to send one city's worth of people and supplies to Mars? You're talking thousands of rocket launches, hundreds of trillions of dollars, and decades, if not centuries, of dangerous missions. Compare that to geoengineering here on Earth, redirecting asteroids, fixing the climate, reversing deforestation, preventing pandemics. Tyson's message was crystal clear. It's cheaper, smarter, and far more practical to invest in protecting this planet than to gamble on starting from scratch on a frozen desert.
We have to do this because at some stage, planet Earth is just not going to be a viable place anymore, was his.
And here's the savage part. By pushing Mars as a backup plan, Musk might actually be sending the wrong message, that Earth is disposable, that if we trash this place with pollution, climate change, and war, it doesn't matter. We'll just move to Mars. Tyson called that out for what it is. Dangerous thinking. Because the reality? There is no Earth 2.0 waiting for us around the corner, not for billions of people.
It's in 5 billion years.
Right.
So we have a whole lot of other sort of prioritized things we should be thinking about between now and then.
But on the principle,
by then, we might have colonized other star systems.
Then came the apocalypse debate. And this is where Tyson really flexed his science brain. Piers Morgan, wide-eyed as ever, asked him about Musk's point that eventually, Earth is doomed no matter what. And Tyson admitted, yes, Musk is technically right. In about 5 billion years, the sun will balloon into a red giant, swallow Mercury and Venus, and start boiling Earth's oceans until the planet is nothing but a charred ember drifting in space. That's the final chapter for this little blue marble. This is the core contradiction between these two men. Musk's eyes are locked on extinction-level events. He's thinking long-term survival, human consciousness stretching across planets. But Tyson, he's focused on the crises happening now. Global instability, famine, rising seas, nuclear tensions. In Tyson's view, Musk's dream of Mars might not be bold. It might be a distraction from the survival fight right here on Earth.
Because we didn't go to the moon because it was because it's in our DNA, or it's because, no, we went because we were scared. And the speech you remember from John Kennedy, where he says, we'll put a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth, that's a stirring speech. And the hair rises up on the back of your neck. You can hear him in his Brookline, Massachusetts accent reciting this. But that's not what wrote the checks. That same speech.
And then Tyson dropped the history lesson that made his argument even sharper. He reminded everyone that we didn't go to the moon because it was the next frontier. We went because we were scared. The Soviets had beaten us into orbit with Sputnik. They put Yuri Gagarin into space. The US government panicked, and John F. Kennedy stepped up to deliver his famous moon speech. You know the one. We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Inspiring words, sure.
If the events of recent weeks couldn't even say Yuri Gagarin, if the events of recent weeks are any indication of the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere, then we need to show the world the path of freedom over the path of tyranny. That was the battle cry against communism, and that's what wrote the checks in Congress.
But Tyson pointed out the part of that speech no one remembers. The part where Kennedy basically said, if the events of recent weeks are any indication, we need to show the world the path of freedom over the path of tyranny. That was the real motivation. It wasn't exploration. It was propaganda. It was about beating communism. That's what wrote the checks. And Tyson used that as the dagger in his case. Because after Apollo, once the Cold War urgency faded, guess what happened? All those predictions that by the year 2000, we'd have colonies on Mars, or kids born on the moon, none of it happened. We never went back. Why? Because the fear was gone, and without fear, the funding vanished.
If you think about what could put life at risk here on Earth, that could include, global, very serious pandemic, or asteroid strikes, or we trash the climate, whatever. To think of Mars as Earth 2.0.
Tyson's savage twist was this: Musk is underestimating human nature. He thinks progress is inevitable because technology advances every year. But Tyson says history proves otherwise. Humans are lazy, political, and short-sighted. We'll only do the impossible when we're forced to, when survival or competition is on the line. Without that, Musk's dream risks being nothing more than a vanity project of the world's richest man. If you've come this far, make sure to subscribe to the channel to get more information and analysis like this.